Okay, in case you're not used to the piano keyboard, let me explain it really quick. You'll see the black keys over here on the piano keyboard are grouped off in groups of 2 and 3. So they alternate groups of 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, all the way up and down the keyboard. So just to the left of the first of any group of 2 is the note C. So here's a group of 2, and to the left of that the white key is C. There's another group of 2, to the left of that the white key is C, and so on. And that goes all the way up through the entire keyboard. Now, a major scale is based on intervals, and it's based on steps within the scale. And if you use all of the white keys starting on C, you'll have a C major scale. And it looks like this. So here's all the white keys, and that gives you the sound of a C major scale. Now, each key is a half step. So if you look at this, you'll see the first one, this is a half step above that, and then the next one is a whole step. So you have between the first and second degree of the scale a whole step. And then you have another whole step to the third degree, and then a half step, and then a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and a half step. So the pattern for a major scale is the root, or the tonic as they call it, and a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now if you take that and you transpose it upwards, you'll see that even though it moves up, the intervals still remain the same. You still have the tonic, a whole step, half step, whole, half. So we'll move it up again, and here we have the D major scale. So now here's our tonic, here's our whole step. Now this one would be a half step because each key closest to the next key is a half step. So this is a whole step here. So it's tonic, whole step, and then half step, and then whole, and then another whole step here, because this would be a half step. That's a whole step, and then a half step. So no matter where you play this, whatever starting pitch you start on, as long as you follow that same pattern of tonic, whole, half, whole, half, you have a major scale starting with the name of that tonic. So if you start on a D, it's a D major scale. You start on an E major scale, and so on. So to keep things simple and use all the white keys so we don't have to use key signatures and confuse people with limited skills, we're going to stay in the key of C for this entire course, and then I'll show you how things transpose quickly and easily. But we'll start everything in the key of C. So here's your C major scale, and this is what it would sound like. Okay, now if I move that up, say, to the D major scale, just to give you an example, here's what that would sound like. You still have the same intervals, but now you're starting on D. If you've ever had solfege in grade school, in music class, this is the equivalent of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that would be do, and then re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So when your teacher had you sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, they were having you sing a major scale. So let's move that back down to the key of C again. And here's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now if you take a look at this on the sheet music, for those who read sheet music, it looks like this. Here's the C, the D, the E, F, G, A, B, and C. So that's our C major scale. Now, once again, I'm going to take that and move it up to the D major scale. So we'll just move this up to D, and then we'll take a look at that in the score. And that's what it looks like now. So here you have an F sharp and a C sharp. So 2 sharps is the key signature for the key of D to make a D major scale. And it sounds like this. Diatonic chords are all of the chords that are related to the major scale. So once again, in the key of C, we'll keep it simple. If we start on the C note, here's our major scale with the very bottom note of each of these chords. And then if you take every other note, in other words, if you're on a line, if you start on a line, it'll be every line. If you start on a space, it'll be every space to make what's called a triad, and that's a 3-note chord. You'll see the C, E, and G for the first one, and that makes up a C major chord. And then you have a D, F, A for the second one, that makes up a D minor chord. And then you have an E, G, and B, and that makes up an E minor. And then you have F, A, C, that makes up an F major, and then G, B, D, which makes up a G major. A, C, E makes up an A minor chord. And then B, D, F makes a B diminished, and C, E, G, once again, is the same as this one here. So it's just starting on the C and building another C chord. Roman numerals represent each chord's position on the major scale. So your first one is represented by 1, which is the first degree, and then 2, which is the second degree, 3, the third degree, and so on, all the way up to the 8th degree, which is also a first degree of that scale again. So your first chord being a major is represented by 1 major, and then your 2 chord being a minor is represented with a Roman numeral 2 and a minor, and then we have that all the way up. So 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 diminished, and 1 major again. Now when you've heard people talk about 1-4-5 or 1-6-4-5 chord progressions, the 1 chord would be a major chord built on the first degree of a major scale, no matter what key it's in. The 4 chord would be a 4 major chord built on the 4th degree of the major scale, that whatever key you're in. The 5 chord would be the 5 major in that same key built on the 5th degree. The 6 minor would be built on the 6th degree. So you have 1, 6, 4, 5, or 1, 6 minor, 4, and 5. So that's how your diatonic chords work. Now, if you transpose those, you would move everything up, and no matter where it started, you'd still have the same intervals, just like you did with the major scales. And the same positions would be the same. So you'd still have a 1 major, a 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, and so on, all the way through the major scale. And that would be your chords diatonic to that key starting on whatever root the 1 chord starts on. So if you start on a D for the D major scale, chord patterns would still be the same, except this would be a D, this would be an E minor, this would be an F sharp minor, this would be a G major, and so on. Now, if we take a look at it on the piano keyboard, you'll notice that if we have them all highlighted, all it does is just create a major scale all the way up. But if we take one chord at a time, you'll see here is C, E, and G. And then this is D, F, A, making up a D minor chord, or a 2 minor. Here's your E, G, and B, making up your 3 minor. Here's your 4 major with F, A, and C. Here's your 5 major with G, B, and D. Your 6 minor with A, C, and E. Your 7 diminished with B, D, and F. And then once again, another 1 major starting on C. They have C, E, and G. Now if we moved all of that up to, say, the key of D, this is what we would have. Here's your 1 major, and you have D, F sharp, and A, because this creates the same interval that you had when it was down here in the key of C. And then here's your 2 minor, which is E, G, and B. So that's an E minor. And then your 3 minor would be F sharp, A, and C sharp. Your 4 major would be G, B, and D, or G major. Your 5 major would be A, C sharp, and E, or A major. Your 6 minor would be B minor, B, D, and F sharp. And your 7 diminished would be C sharp, E, and G, or a C sharp diminished. And then built on the 8th degree would be the same as the root, so you'd have another D major chord here again.